All right, well, this is what, Recreation Commission, Tuesday, May 17th, calling our meeting to order at 7:04 p.m. And then we're going to start off with Activitas.
Yep,
right?
They are here. Moving on over.
Great. And do you see Kelvin on there as well?
Yep,
Oh,
he's on his way. Yep.
Great.
Anybody else?
Nope. That's it.
Hey, everyone.
Great. All right. Well, thanks everyone for having us. We are coming to you guys tonight with some updates. You know, the last meeting we kind of had our kickoff, talk about what we're going to do, and Kelvin's going to walk you through what we've done. So looking at a few options, putting together some precedent images to really kind of spark some ideas from you folks as well. And kind of our goal coming out of this is to listen to your reactions, see kind of, you know, there are two very different options. So kind of seeing where we kind of meet in the middle of those two. We'll go back and refine. We have some work to do with just understanding the cap a little bit more and working with Haley and Aldrich for that. But I think all the items that we're presenting to you tonight are very, you know, viable in that situation. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Kelvin, who's going to share his screen, and we'll go from there.
Awesome.
All right. Hopefully you guys can see my screen. So I'm going to kick things off with kind of just going through the existing conditions and kind of revisiting the site challenges for this project. So kind of going in order, number one, we have a existing natural grass field. The approximate size is 185 feet by 645 feet. And it's kind of enclosed, it's not kind of, but it is enclosed with perimeter fencing around it. And kind of moving over to number two, we have existing slopes kind of throughout the whole entire perimeter of the field. So kind of looking at these images in blue kind of shows you how steep the slopes are around the field. And based on our initial review from the road going into the school and to the field, it's approximately 12-foot elevation change. So that definitely brings a challenge in terms of what we can do around the field if we liked to. And going to number three, entrances and kind of field access and existing walkways. So there's currently two existing, one existing entrance and kind of a second one that's not really a formal entrance, but I believe kind of people still use it as access kind of towards to the lower right of the page. And number four is currently there are some existing handicap parking spaces adjacent to the field. Before I get into kind of the concepts, we have two options for the concepts. I like to just kind of recap sort of what we talked about in our last meeting. So based on our last meeting and all of your feedback, we will we basically want to keep the field in the north and provide a dog park in the south and kind of connecting those two elements with a walking path. We talked about entrances and accessibility, on-site drinking water, seating areas, and community engagement in spaces. So moving on to concept option number one, going in order again. number one, we're looking at a 165 by 360 natural grass field with a 10-foot kind of a safety zone around it. So if we're looking from like fence to fence, we're keeping the same size that you guys currently have as a field. There's really limited options in terms of expanding the field size currently. Then moving on to number two would be the dog park. Shown in the left page in brown, the brown kind of symbolizes a mulch or engineered wood fiber dog park. And we're looking at a half an acre. And there will be kind of a bermed area and a landscape element within the dog park for dogs to kind of just roam, run around, and also kind of gives the site a little bit more elevation, texture, kind of form. And moving on to number three, this would be kind of your accessible walkway onto the field. And I'm kind of over here. So, you know, you could come from school, parking, or kind of just like pedestrians walking to the field. And that will bring you all the way up to the field and connected by these other walkways that you can access the dog park or just kind of open space elements within this option. And number four will be new landscape areas. So the idea here is to kind of berm up these small pockets and kind of raise the landscape a little bit to kind of create a form and kind of not so that the field isn't just like flat, or the surface isn't just flat throughout the whole entire site. And just kind of renovating the slopes along the field. So that will be number five. Excuse my circles. So moving on to option number two. If I can. Option number two, just kind of builds on to option number one a little. So starting off with number one, we're getting actually a smaller size natural grass field than option number one. So I actually forgot to mention in option number one, we're looking at a 360 in length. And in option number two, we're looking at a 300 in length, but we're still maintaining that width in terms of the natural grass field. In this option, we actually have two dog parks, kind of one area for larger dogs, then another, a second area for smaller dogs. The large dog park area is still half an acre, and the small dog park is a quarter of an acre. So sometimes it's a little bit intimidating for small dogs to be in kind of a large dog setting. So in this option, there's opportunity to have two dog parks. Number three would be kind of your accessible walkway again, similar to option number one. You can access the field through here, and actually looking at this area, we would kind of provide that accessible access here into the site. Number four, new landscape areas, similar to option one. We'll provide new landscape areas in this concept. So kind of working with the dog parks, we provide kind of a bermed up element to the site. Number 5 would just be similar to option number 1, renovating the slopes. Number 6, we'll provide new parking. So along this stretch, basically by bumping the walkway in, we can provide additional parking spaces here, which provides access kind of towards to the field through this entrance for accessibility wise, and kind of lead you to this entrance, which is now more formalized in terms of kind of a step going into the field. Due to the elevation change, as you can see, there's quite some steps. That's only there to kind of meet the elevation when from the road to the field. Number 7, we implemented a kind of a new community pollinator garden, and this is kind of going towards to the whole community engagement in the space. So this can actually be great for educational purposes too, for school. Number 8 would be just kind of a new site amenity, kind of open lawn space area. Specifically in this area, we would provide kind of like lawn steps or seating where people can come in and just sit, enjoy, and relax kind of situation, and kind of also view the field during potential games. And also more additional parking spaces here based off kind of the existing plan. This is kind of the existing parking right now, but in this option, we'll bump the parking so it's parallel parking along the road, and it kind of opens up this area for potential a potential space and kind of a broader entrance to the site above. And in terms of on-site water, the plan is to kind of have these bottle filling stations and jug fillers in kind of this general vicinity, so that the dog parks can use it. And this seems like a logical place for people to kind of just fill their bottles. And following the concepts, these are just kind of field precedent images. So we got the athletic, natural grass athletic field. Dog park. So there's actually a dog park in right out, kind of like near our office. This is the Denham Dog Park in Massachusetts. We were thinking about just mulch or engineer fiber. This is showing kind of that ledge or boulder style aspect relating to our concept. Then for the enclosure of the dog park, we were thinking more of a softer material to kind of enclose the dog park a little bit rather than just having a chain link fence. So that's just an idea for enclosure material, pathways and circulation kind of throughout the site. Some of the berms and plantings, and this is this image here, Boulders and Plantings. It's a little bit just to kind of re-emphasize the whole, we had like boulders in kind of in our dog park, kind of spread out throughout the site. So that just kind of gives a more vertical element rather than just having a flat site. Pollinator garden, and these were kind of some ideas of the terrace steps and seating where people can access to field by walking down steps or sitting, and just some typical steps and cheek walls in the entrance that's more formalized in option 2. In here, kind of in this area. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Does anyone have any comments, feedback?
Kelvin, I'll jump in just for 1 second. So, you know, as you guys can see, the options are very different, and we can really kind of go bigger, or we can even go smaller than what we're showing right now, but it's certainly a place to start. We're going to have to obviously respect the landfill cap. So as we start thinking about things with footings, you know, it may become more of, you know, placing elements, you know, granite pieces, things like that for seating. You know, that's stuff that we'll work with the geotechnical engineer on, and to think about those things. And we'll also have to think about differential settlement. You know, as we start to think about the potential for the berms and things like that, as we put weight on, obviously it adds weight to the landfill cap and what that means. So, but I think the goal is, you know, it's a very long, flat area, as you all know. So to be able to get some, you know, planting elements out there, even if it's more kind of shrubs, like I don't think we're ever really going to have much success with shade trees, things like that up there, but just because the roots can't get anywhere to really grow, you know. So, but just thinking about very simple ways in kind of, you know, lower maintenance ways to get some more elements on there. So with that, we'd love to open it up for any questions or thoughts or all that good stuff.
This is super exciting. Yeah, so one thing I realized I was on mute as I was talking, but the water element, do we already have like water fountains down that bottom left corner? They're just turned off. I think we do have water access there, right? Yeah. Okay. So I thought, cool. Just so that like upgrading that would be a lot easier. It's not like we need to run, yeah, water out there. Cool. I mean, I like the idea of having like the big dog and the small dog area. I think it's becoming more and more standard now. And then also like, I don't know, I'm a big dog owner and I feel like I just worry my dogs are going to eat the little dogs and not realize how big they are. Right. Or just being able to separate, right? Like if someone's in an area, someone can go in a different area instead if they want. So, yeah.
On this plan for 6 for that, the parking inlet where the parking currently is that getting rid of the island? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that gets rid of that island, and you know, as Kelvin was mentioning, it kind of opens up that green space right above the walkway for some more gathering. Like there's no real gathering space right there right now because of the island kind of going in, and then the hill starts right there. So there's some opportunity there while we're pulling the kind of the top area out a little bit more space for potential gathering. Hey, let's meet here and then let's walk up together to either go over to the field or go to the dog park or just to kind of go for use the walking paths.
And is this retaining any of the maybe not the actual, but the footprint of the fence that's currently there? Or is that getting rid of it? What's that?
Yes, so from, let's see if I can show it. Basically this is retaining the existing footprint of the fence, same along here. Because everything kind of slopes down pretty steeply. And along here. So what's new would be kind of this little section here. Because we're adding that new walkway in there.
Yeah, and that walkway is sloping up at 5%. So you have to be 5% or less to be accessible. So to go up about 12 feet, we need like 240 feet of walkway going up, which is about that distance. And then it kind of, because it's on kind of, we're kind of going up against the landfill cap there. So whether or not we end up with a fence there in the end, but it will be a pretty steep slope kind of coming back down. So we're showing that for now.
And then is a similar slope down by the, like number 3, down by the island parking as well to get up there? Okay.
Yep.
Don, what size field is that? Like 99?
I'd say it's 99 would be my guess. I don't know how to translate that into, I know you've used rugby up there and lacrosse, but I mean, you'd be looking at this as a practice sort of camp type field anyway, I think. And so I think you'd still have a fairly, usable
Well, 99, isn't that Trotter as well?
Trotter, exactly.
So, I mean, would they do lacrosse on there as well? So this could be a beat field for them, for boys and girls.
No, the walkway, I like the walkway that leads to the parking because the unofficial entrance in the northeast corner is really the one that's used by most people because the parking is down by the school for all effective purposes. So the pathways, is that sort of a crushed gravel or stone, or what's the sort of concept for that? Or does it vary?
I think it could be either. It could be asphalt. I don't think it really wants to be concrete. I think maybe some sort of stone dust, stabilized stone dust would work well. I mean, stabilized stone dust is nice because if we do have settlement, we're not going to get, it's going to crack, but it's like a fixable crack as opposed to asphalt where it's a little bit more difficult to repair.
Yeah, and I'm thinking too, like from an accessibility perspective, you would anticipate ideally that the ADA access would be in the southeast corner, by the small dog park, right? And your that northwest corner access is really just providing, not necessarily to be compliant, but just to provide a safe pathway.
Right. Yep. Yeah, it just makes nice connections too for walking paths. It's something that we can actually mark the distances around, so people can actually use it almost as a kind of secondary, track or something like that to just be able to count their steps.
Yeah.
Now, was there, and it could have been something that we talked about, was there a reasoning for putting the dog park on the side it is? Does it have to do with the slope of how is where the field represented now? Is that like the best shape of the field? Because I know it's teeter-tottering, so I don't know if it was established enough where, well, I guess 2 questions. So 1, I guess, is that what we talked about? And 2, establishing a field, I mean, is that taken into account building it up at all? Or is that still in question because of still trying to figure out the cap and everything underneath? Or is that kind of as is, slope as is? It's not perfect, but it'll work.
Sure. So, I mean, that will come into our next step, and then it's going to come into budget, right? Because, I mean, we can rebuild your field there. It's going to have expense to it, right? And then we're going to have to account for that settlement because you're never not going to have settlement on these fields, but there's ways to, try to mitigate it. So, I mean, here, we haven't put cost to anything, but we're kind of thinking it as a full-blown project. But if we needed to, the site's pretty defined into 2 separate areas. So we could always, we could look at phasing it. We could look at doing one project only. I think there are some options there that we can work with. I am interested to hear from you guys. The options really start to, the dog park and kind of that, less active kind of area grows on this site. Right now, you have a very active site. It's all field, right? How are your feelings from a programming standpoint about that growth and about keeping kind of the passive recreation, growing that within the area?
I think it's as it sits now, compared to other facilities in town and everyone can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's probably one of our most underutilized areas. So I think putting an attraction such as a passive area, especially of this, I think, you know, this is a project, it's on the master plan, it's what we always hear about, it's something that's wanted. I think it could kind of revitalize the use of that area. And I don't think the maintaining of an active surface up here is really, now I think keeping half of it as is an active area should be essential, due to some overflow and if we have to take fields offline. But adding a passive element, I think will actually do better up here.
Yeah, it's the site itself is almost, you know, it was a good idea to cap it and put a field on top of it, but it's narrow. It's almost too narrow because I've been up there before to play larger scale games, and it gets really close to the edge, to where the existing wetlands would be on this map. And so it almost becomes an unwieldy sort of setup up there. And then, you know, you do have the issue, most of the issues with the cap and the sort of shifting of underneath is really to the south side where you've got all the passive area being sort of projected here. I think the area on the right is actually in fine shape from a field perspective. I think it makes for a very good field for general purpose use, or as Tim was saying, for, you know, backup for when other fields come down for rest and whatnot. So I think it's a good mix. I think the potential of, you know, adding some other use may even mean that field could be used for, I don't know, you could have a concert up there, or you could have you know, some other event up there. So I think the way you've sort of portrayed it makes good use of what was otherwise sort of an unwieldy space. It's almost too big for you don't even have the parking necessarily to jam as many people in there as you could have in there. It's sort of just a weird, you know, we're making do with what we have, right? So I like what you've done here with the large dog, the small dog. I like the walkways, the retaining of a field there. The you know, the pollination area, not my area of expertise, but I do know that there's a group in town that is particularly in tune with that. And so it would be great as we proceed, if we go down that road, to get their you know, involvement and potential there, because this could be a good site for, I know they try to do things that encourage you know, the growth of certain plants and species and whatnot. So I like that, and you even have almost like an open space trails kind of concept going here too, because now you have the ability to sort of safely transit into the school area, and even all the way through the school area to the other side. So, you know, you've got a nice little sort of package coming together as far as sort of how it sets up. And I just know from being out there that there are patches that and we know from cost estimates that were done several years ago that, you know, if you were to restore this to a single use wide open field, you'd be spending a lot of money to do it. And I'm not sure you would get the active use that you would otherwise get if you were to open up the space to be, as you mentioned, passive, whether it's people just walking through, enjoying the plants, bringing a small dog, a large dog, whatever it is. I think it's a far better potential plan for the use of the space than how it's been used in the last 10, 15 years.
Great. How is it up there? And, you know, and I think this because at our last meeting, I think there was an Eagle Scout on before us. Maybe it was when we did the other project, and he did the viewing areas, right, for you know, bringing telescopes out and things like that. Would there be any interest in providing some areas for, you know, that type of night viewing out here, because it is kind of a elevated, large open space?
I think that would be more on the programming side. I don't think they'd have to be more of a dedicated space for it. I think you just nailed on the head. It's already elevated. So, you know, where you have, B8, whatever that is, and, you know, between the field and the dog park, that little green open space. I mean, that presents itself for kind of like what Don said, like community event, community programming, again, multi-purpose use of the facility. And that's kind of an easy one to knock off that list with that. Yeah.
Great.
So I guess, Meg, where are we with just the cap piece of it looking? I know you said you're working with your engineer on it. I'm just curious on where you are with that.
Yeah, we have to go over to DPW and pick up some additional plans that they have and pass those to H&A. So we're planning to do that early next week. And so I think, when is your next meeting? Is it 2 weeks, or do you guys do, I forget, 2 weeks or 3 weeks?
Usually second week of the month. So
Okay.
that is.
So I think we'd be ready for that meeting to kind of discuss, you know, the rest of it and put some cost. I mean, it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like option 2 kind of is a desired option without too many changes to it.
Yeah, I think I would say I like a lot of the elements in 2. I think where we have to think about is that in the lower right, do we need the stairs there, or do we just rely on other access points? The parking on the right-hand side, we should think about, as you move forward, what is the, as you would with any project, what's your give and your take?
Right. And we can break out those elements individually so we can kind of see how they add up, you know, to that full number. And, you know, like we said, we can start there, and then we can start to pull apart things too, if we have to start thinking about phasing, you know, as we start to consider budget. So,
Yeah,
that's
so
great.
maybe just one thing on this, just because like I feel like the walkways is like a hot topic and there's not many of them. Like I guess I could go either way in the stairs there, but would there ever be a place where like the perimeter actually becomes an entire walkway all around that field? So the far right and top, like there's a full circle loop. If you were to edge, like basically put it as close to the fence line as you can. So we're not like cutting up the field, but would you actually edge that so it's walkable?
Yeah, absolutely. We can do that for sure.
Just, it gives you
Yeah, and we,
like longer walkways.
right. Yeah, absolutely. Kelvin, were you going to say something? Sorry. And your mouth's moving. Okay. But yeah, Jen, we can absolutely add that in. Not a problem. Great. Well, if there's no other comments, I think, you know, that's everything that we have for tonight. And we'll be ready for your next meeting to present and go over, you know, final options, discussion of the cap. We'll probably update, you know, some of those precedent images based on cap discussions, and then go from there. One question, is there any need for lighting up there at all? It gets a little complicated up there, so I just want to kind of throw it out there as we look at numbers.
I had like half wondered that, but then I was like, but I think this is a matter. I don't think it is. I think it becomes a like this
It's
is
a need
like
one.
up to sundown. Yeah. Yeah. Especially with like all of the wetlands around it. I feel like there'd be questions about what are we lighting up and
Yeah, and we just went through a lighting project there with those neighbors. And I think if we're trying to now illuminate the other side of where we just put in, it could be met with some pushback. So
I mean, the only illumination that I would even sort of consider would be sort of like pathway or walkway illumination, certainly
Yeah.
not towers, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
if there was like a solar powered pathway illumination, that I mean, that would be the absolute. I mean, what do you guys think? That would be the absolute, like,
no, I agree. I
that'd be
think
the most, I think.
yeah.
The only thing with that now are we encourage them to be up there after dark, right?
Yeah.
And do we want them to? So that might come down to like what we want our policies or hours to be for the park. Because you put lights there, they're going to be there after dark versus no lights, meaning, you know, we're not encouraging it, that it should be closed.
I just think no matter what though, even if it's unlit, that's a huge cut through. So
Yep.
True.
just to be devil's advocate on that one, you know.
No,
so that
that's
it comes
true.
down
But if
to
we light it, we're
viability.
encouraging it, right?
Mhm.
So
So double-edged sword on that one, I think.
Yep.
It always is, no matter what. Lights in general. Well, great. Well, thanks everyone. This is great information, and we'll keep on going.
Cool. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good to see
All
you
right,
both.
no problem. All right, have a good night,
All
guys.
right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
That's exciting.
Yeah, looks good.
Yeah, they look great. Awesome.
It's nice to be working, we're working in an area that doesn't, you know, impede, it's already available for development as opposed to like, you know, encroaching on some other space or, you know, we have a footprint already we can work within without having to like, you know, grab something else or impose somewhere else.
Mhm.
That looks great. What's the nearest dog park? I don't have a dog. So like where is there the closest dog park right now? There isn't one in town.
No.
Like
Framingham?
where would you go? Like Framingham?
I know
Yeah, I think,
Framingham.
Building theirs, yeah. Does Hudson have one? I feel like Hudson has one.
I think people will go to like the Callahan State Park.
Yeah, Hopkinton State Park, I think, too.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's mostly they're going to the state parks. So
That's great.
Oh.
That'd be really exciting.
You have to get a
Yeah.
dog, Rachel.
I know. Maybe that'll be like the argument. My 4-year-old's trying hard with that.
nice. Awesome. Okay, so we have ADA self-evaluation.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so I know this, we've been talking about this for a while. So I've been meeting with ADA. They meet every other week, it seems. Just, you know, starting to kind of really press down on a lot of, sorry, just get my screens all done. They want answers per se, I think, on a lot of this stuff. And so what they've asked of REC, because arguably, like we know, REC is one of the biggest things that have been called out in the ADA study. They would like a list of priorities from us of what we think the direction we want to go. I mean, I'll tell you my view and then we can talk about it. I think it's
Can I just ask, like, didn't we give that to them?
so we gave them our stance on it
Okay.
and they accepted that. The last meeting we went to, the one thing that they picked out of it was, are these things necessary or are these things what are wanted? I forget how it was actually phrased, but it was need versus want.
Right.
And that question was pulled from there, was put to John, parent from facilities. And then that was actually, we're pulling the state back in to ask that question to get clarification on a lot of this stuff. So that's to be determined and I think that the answer to that, I think, determines a lot of what we may do. I'll go over kind of the little stuff we've been able to really tick off quickly with the help of everybody in town. But my piece of it, and I've said this to multiple people, is when the scope of what they're asking us to do, I think is not realistic to do in one sure shot. I mean, full access to the fields, you're talking about engineering work, you're talking about contracting work, bids, procurement, you know, and I've said this many times to them, and I think they're mindful of that, but they still want to know kind of where we're going with this and what we want to do. You know, a lot of it's on hold. I would say Woodward's on hold. I would say Neary is definitely on hold. You know, we just poured all that money into the Peachtree. You know, I don't even know if we can get something going all around it. And I think that's again where that contractor, that engineering firm comes in. You know, Calander's going under the knife, but that wasn't a piece of it. So I mean, if we're going to prioritize, you know, low hanging fruit, I would say Lundblad's our first one because we have a plan to it. But I think I guess the main question of prioritization is just very hard. I think because of the scope, because of the cost with that. So like I said, there's actually I can bring it up. Where am I? So based on the review, these are the smaller things that were called out. Had a lot to do with picnic tables, toilets, water fountains, parking, everything like that. So we've been able to tick off kind of the smaller stuff when it comes to the portable toilets. We went out and we got a new company working with DPW. So that's been taken care of. Picnic tables, Joe and I literally went out and we moved picnic tables to where they were supposed to be, or turned them around, or reorganized them. We're working with DPW to stripe all the parking lot spots that have been called out that we need at various facilities. Facilities has been in our building actually this week. They've been changing everything. They're moving signs, they're moving paper towel dispensers, soap dispensers, X, Y, Z, doorbells, all that stuff. So the immediate things we prioritize, the immediate, I think, front facing stuff we're taking care of. But again, it comes down to the big guys, and I just think there's a lot of layers. You guys can cut me off if you feel like I'm rambling here. There's a lot of layers, I think, too, with a lot of this stuff. When you think about 9/11, it's like, okay, they want us to establish a more proper surface that's not stone dust or loose gravel, but we can't just go out and do that. It's a bigger process of getting DCR approval, if they're even let us, and so on and so forth. Like I said, Woodward's on hold because we don't know what's going on with that building, but also we may be doing something more extreme there with turf. Neary be on hold with the school. Lundblad is where we are. Clander, like I said. So I just think
can you just remind us, Tim, like what's the what's the basic requirements? So like, for example, if I think about Clander, right, that's another location that doesn't have a parking surface, right? Is that the issue? Or or maybe each field is a little bit different, but what's the big thing they're looking for, at, I was going to say, even at Show, like you've got the parking lot there, like, is there, like, what's the accessibility issue that sort of is pushing all these?
The big issue on every single one is the statement that we need access to the entire perimeter of the field.
Why?
So I feel like this comes back. So in our response, which I think we sent back in like December, January, was like, what is a need versus a want? Because like, that's a very expensive ask if we have to go build a perimeter walkway on every single field in town, versus like, if it's a want and a nice to have, like we're going to have it on Lundblad, right? Like there's ways we can incorporate into new designs, but to go back and put them all in, I really feel like we need to know what's absolutely required versus what is like, so, I mean, for example, I'm literally going through this with all our website and product design at work for accessibility, and there's rating scales, right? Like I'm not trying to be on the highest end, but I'm trying to be better than I was. And that's, I think, what was really missing in this entire study, was helping us understand like, what is the bare minimum? And then what are the stages of like how good we could get? Like if we're rated for accessibility, like what is, yeah. And not even being like insensitive, but like, what are the requirements? And then what are the different ways we could be better without having to shoot for the moon the first time around?
I think that would be helpful, because I'm having trouble with why you would need a pathway all the way around the field. Like if the purpose is observation or, whatever, providing that observation, the length of the field or whatever, this like, because even at 9/11, you don't have a pathway all the way around. And I've gone to other towns where you can't have a pathway around. It's actually sitting up on top of a retaining wall, because they brought it up. Like you can't do anything around, nor do you necessarily need to. Like usually when you think about that field space, generally you have a section that is for observation, and you have the other side. Typically you want the participants, so that you actually keep the loud parents as far away from the kids as you can. So there's actually a design to it to some extent. So I'm all for, look, I get it. 9/11 is tough, even if you're like, if you don't have accessibility issues, right? The gravel there over time pots out. And so I get that. So that makes a lot of sense. The duration with DCR is going to be an issue. You know, Calander, does that mean we got to firm up the surface where that parking is? And you can observe up there. I don't know that you necessarily, you know, again, that's on a hill. Do you have to like provide a pathway down to the hill, or can you designate certain fields in the town to be the accessible ones, and the other ones are, you know, do you use that as best you can? Like it feels like I like your concept though. And I've seen those ratings before as well, Jen, like, you know, you must have at least 1 5-star, but you need your other ones can be 3 stars. Like, you know, where's
Yeah.
that sort of like balance?
Yeah, I mean, everything was, I don't know if it was rated per se that way. I mean, everything was rated as a immediate need, a future need, but it wasn't, you know, based on the priority of what the consultant was saying. But it, like, to Jen's point, like it wasn't a 2 out of 3 stars, you know, just for argument's sake or whatnot.
Yeah. And so like this accessibility study I literally just got back at work says like you have like a B rating on this, but an A on this. If you do these things, you'll get to a AAA. So we're trying to decide like, what do we want our rating to be? Where do we want to land? And that's how much work we're gonna have to do to get there. So that's what I think. So I think it's great that we're doing all these quick wins to get them done, but anything else we do further is going to require us to put this out, like find funding and put it out to bid. So I kind of feel like we need to understand, like from our question, like what is required versus a nice to have. And then maybe it's a conversation with this ADA committee to say, okay, well, we'll focus on the requireds, but of all these nice to haves, could we prioritize them? And then see, like, maybe we can sneak a couple in now and like others will be future times when we touch the property. But I actually feel like we have to have that information in order to go forward with anything else, because it requires now spending and finding capital funding for it.
It is just as an example for, as I was thinking through, like, how would I prioritize it? You would theoretically, if you could, you'd prioritize it in terms of highest use, right? So what fields are used the most, right? And so the two that come to mind are, you know, the Mooney fields and 9/11, right? The 9/11, like we're all stacked up all the time. That thing is jammed, okay? And I imagine Mooney is very similar. Do they have to put a pathway around the outfields? Like, is that how we're supposed to interpret it doesn't, that just seems a bit much. But like, I could understand, hey, you better have a nice pathway that, you know, allows someone to go to be able to see the activity going on at each of the fields. Like, got it. Makes a lot of sense. I would propose to prioritize a field like that or location like that over, Calander, single use, sport use, not, you know, like what I'm making that up, but you know what I mean? Like I would look for those highest, where do we have the most usage and start there. But even with that, I want to understand, like, are we going to be putting concrete over everything? Like that part just baffles me a little bit.
And yeah, I mean, like, to answer one of your questions, Don, that's pretty much what it is when they're talking about perimeter. You would think of if you park at Mooney Field in that small parking lot, and you go down the gravel way. The idea would be to continue that entire gravel way around front of the tennis courts, up to the parking lot, down and back to that. It'd be like a full 360 loop. You'd have to get around.
See, that's the part that, like, as long as you can get, I don't understand why you need 360. Like, if you could get to where you need to be and have access. But again, I don't know what the law is, and I guess we don't know what the law is either, because all we have is the single recommendation from whoever did the study.
So I feel like, Tim, our answer to them is that we have to have that question answered to understand how to prioritize things, and then so that we can also figure out how to package it up to go look for funding.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be comfortable telling them that we would obviously go to the most where the fields are used the most. That would, if you put a gun to our, in our head and said, where would you like, would go the ones that need the most, use the most. 9/11 obviously presents issues because of the relationship with the DCR. So fine, like, what are the DCR requirements for ADA? Like how does that, like, but that's how I would, let's lay it out. It'd be Mooney Finn, it'd be 9/11, and then, we have those other locations that we know are sort of part of bigger studies, and so those sort of get slotted. And then, Calander's a great example. There's no reason to have a walkway all the way around that field. It doesn't make any sense. It actually defeats part of the purpose of the design of the location. So that would be a great one to get an answer on. Like, tell us what the heck you need to do here.
But also, I mean, but it would also prohibit the use of the space. If you think about it,
yeah.
You're now shrinking. I mean, first off, the biggest issue there is stormwater. And now we're going to put a pathway in it. It's like, we're gonna
it doesn't.
more stormwater. But I'm saying, like, ooh, that was bright. But yeah, I mean, now we're shrinking our fields, and I think the same would be for DePetrie, Plander, DePetrie. And I just had another one on the top of my head. But yeah, I think that's another question too, I guess, is if it gets to the point where it's prohibiting intended use, is it necessary? So.
Have they provided someone for the various groups in town to talk to ask these particular questions? Like, or are we just working off of whatever the document was that was submitted?
No, yeah, I mean, there's the Public Accessibility Committee that has been put in charge of this. I mean, Mark is the head ADA commissioner in town. So.
But does he have like is there sort of a certification you get so that you're able to opine on the requirements? Does that?
No, he's more of a point person.
I think
Okay.
that's why our question's going back to the state, you said, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So that's
Okay.
why we're waiting on an answer, because we don't have expertise local.
Yeah, I'm struggling a little bit because I spend, at least over the last how many years traveling from town to town for soccer every weekend. Only half of our games are at home, and I think I was just in Dedham week before last, downtown Dedham. They have a turf field that literally, it's almost the center of town. It's on this elevated platform. You have to walk up the stairs to get there. And then you literally walk up the stairs and then you're on the field. There's no pathway around it. Now, on the other side of the field, there's a pathway, and it leads to, I imagine, to parking that's in a better spot and the whole thing. But in that particular case, accessibility was on the south side of the facility, and the north and the north, the east and the west were blocked off, nets and the whole, like there was nothing, you couldn't walk around the whole facility. You could not walk around the whole facility. You could only either walk on the top level that was accessible, or they had this like additional parking down below that you had to traverse 25 or 30 stairs to get to. And that looked relatively recent, and in a city. I think it's the city of Dedham, maybe not town of Dedham, but like there's no wraparound accessibility there, and they have no shot at putting it in because they'd literally be ripping up turf and it's already shoehorned in there.
I mean,
Unless they consider turf accessible.
Same argument can be with 9/11 though. I mean, you'd be ripping up, you won't be ripping up turf, but you'd be ripping up parking. You're making our small parking lot even smaller. And then the far end, where the pathway is, there's two sides that you could do it, but you're going to have to sacrifice space to make that work. So,
Right. Well, yeah, again, if you were saying, look, I want you to 9/11, for example, if you said I'm going to pave the north end so that that's where you put your handicap parking, and then you were going to pave the space between the fence and where the cars park, make that a 2 or 3 foot wide sidewalk effectively. You could run that the length of the field, and that would give folks accessibility to sort of see, now the fence is there, so if you happen to be in a wheelchair, you're gonna be looking through a fence, but like, you'd be able to get up and down the length of the field. It doesn't shoot the south side can get soaked
Mhm.
because that's where the water drains. Like, oh, brutal.
He says an accessible route of travel needs to be provided to all areas to the public. Construct an accessible route of travel from the parking to the field. Remove blocks.
Oh, to the public. But what if the area was not accessible to the public?
What do you mean?
So
Only the
let's-
team is allowed over there. or
Yeah, so what if pick Callander, for example, you know, the eastern edge of that, which is up against the slope.
Yeah.
It like that's not open to the public. Yeah, there, you know, you use the space to play, but you know, there's no expectation that we would have anyone ever having any business to conduct over there, right? 9/11 is a little bit tougher because people could, and we have the memorial on one side and the whole thing. That one is a tougher one. But Callander would be one. Same thing with DePietri. There's no reason for someone to be up against the hillside where the landfill is. That's just not public space. You shouldn't be there.
Mhm.
Maybe we have to think about, you know, maybe we need to put some signs up.
Right,
Yeah,
and
so-
the ADA, you know, my limited experience with the ADA is it's about reasonableness too. The accommodations have to be reasonable. So, you know, reasonable is like a variable definition, but it seems like what we're discussing would not fall under that category of, you know, a reasonable accommodation. It's not accessible to the public. But what's the timing for the state getting back with some sort of answer?
They wanted
I
it
mean,
yesterday, so.
yeah.
No, the state getting an answer.
Oh, the
Like,
state.
Right, like, yeah, I mean, it seems like,
Well, I mean, I think you go back and you look at the meetings that the select board had with the state, and the state even said that we're in fantastic shape as a town. You know, there's no glaring issues that are plaguing our town. I mean, let's see, they mapped everything out from, like I mentioned before, immediate term to take care of by the end of this year to long-term stuff to take care of by 2030. So even the statewide, they're not expecting this to be done next week. Public accessibility committee wise, you know, they want this done as soon as possible. So that's where the discrepancy or difference in opinion, I think, is. And I understand that, you know, this stuff is important, and I really do, and I appreciate that. But I mean, Rachel, you just made a great point. It's reasonable accommodations of, you know, at what point do we have to put our foot down and say, okay, like I said, if we do this, it's going to now change the usage of the field because we can't house certain games, you know, or it's going to require us that we need to now, you know, take a piece of land by domain or something so that we can construct a pathway, you know, something like that. So I guess, how do you want me to respond? I guess that we need to get an answer on our want versus need, and then if we were to give a temporary response, it would be based on usage would be priority.
Yeah, and I would expound on the want versus need and take in the concept we just discussed of reasonableness. Like, how do we apply reasonableness to something? And I would pick the two examples that come to mind are Callander and DePietri. Like, there's no reason to have a walkway next to the landfill side of the, like, come on, like that. And if you get sort of, if that starts to say, oh, well, actually, you know, that does make sense. So then, okay, then maybe that opens the door on what is reasonable, and then you can have a different conversation.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
All right, so I'll get something put together by the end of the week and I'll send it around.
Sounds good.
Or- What's next?
General updates, like summer programming updates or spring updates.
Go down my list. All right, I will start with special events. So Summer Nights is well underway, if not just about done planning already. All of our food trucks are booked. We got 12 food trucks, so we expanded that. Fireworks are booked. The Friends helped with the deposit. They covered that deposit for us this year, so they helped us get that all buttoned up. So fireworks are good to go from Atlas. Same level of show, same company, same expectation as we had in years past. Last year was great, so looking forward to that. The band is booked for that. Sponsorships are starting to come in. We're up to about $7,000 in sponsorships, so we're looking pretty good financially. The one thing that we're going to bring back this year that we didn't have from last year is the quote unquote kid zone. So we're going to be bringing back the inflatables and some more kid features that were lacking, and that we heard that people wanted back, and now we're a little more comfortable bringing them back. So we have all that booked. So inflatables are coming back. Face painting will come back. We're not going to go such large scale as the rock wall or the pony rides or anything like that, but there's going to be plenty of stuff for the kids to do outside of just the general hangout of what it was at years past. So Summer Nights 22 is looking really good, outside of logistical stuff with police and fire that usually comes about a month or so before. We're pretty much good to go. So I give credit to Joe on that one. He really hauled on the food trucks. I think he had those booked within 24 hours, and then we switched up the band, so it'll be a different band this year. We're good. So I'll go with that, and of course with Denise, passing her knowledge on of what needed to get done. So Summer Nights, good to go. Program wise, we're rolling. So we're in the midst of our final wrap sessions already. We got like 2 weeks left and then we're done. We're finishing not as strong as I hope. We got 14 programs running. Doesn't sound like a lot, but the good thing is those 14 are jam-packed. They're sold out. If not, we had to extend it. So our numbers were still good. What we're finding this session pretty glaring is that kind of all of our sports programs are off the table. No one's taking them because everyone does nothing but sports now this season after school. So, all of our usuals that we saw big numbers didn't run, but our STEMs are kind of our alternative sports. We brought back tennis finally. This session, fishing came back after a long hiatus. Archery's back with Frank. All those packed up, and we were able to extend those numbers and bring in more kids. So wrap was really good. So finishing strong. I think overall this year, the school year of wraps, I think we started kind of questionable, and I think we ramped up and we continued the momentum. So super happy on how that ended. The other big one was track and field. We're already about a week out from track and field finishing. So we've had a few meets, we've had a whole bunch of practices, and we actually have 8 students who have qualified for states on our team. So they will be going to states in about 3 weeks. So we're going to be bringing back on our coaches, Coach Delaney and our new coach, Coach Sandra. They're going to do some additional work with them the week of to get them prepared. And we're going to hopefully see all of our athletes out there cheering them on. So we're excited. We had some really good times. And we're excited for those kids to make it, especially after a couple of years off. As I mentioned, we do have a new coach, Coach Sandra, who jumped on with us this year. She is tremendous. She has a big interest in helping with cross country, so we're going to hopefully keep her on for the fall, because before we know it, we're going to be planning that. And then also, I got to give a shout out to Joe. He really took initiative with this program. He goes to every single practice. He goes to every single meet. He helps with the coaches. He helps coaching the kids. He researches everything across from me. I hear him watching tutorials on, how to throw a shot put and where your feet go and stuff like that. So I give him a ton of credit. He's really taking to it, and he's actually getting honored with an award with one of the parent groups because one of the students nominated him for kind of an impact award with the kids. So that was great to see. So props to him on track and field. Women's softball, I know I mentioned our last meeting, our kind of inaugural season. I can't express to you how great that is going. You know, outside of the weather being perfect, the feedback we're getting is just tremendous. Not to brag, one of our Southborough teams is in first place undefeated right now. So that's always wonderful. But it's been awesome. You know, it's been fun for us, for our colleagues and other departments, just trash talking every Sunday. But you know, everyone we've talked to has provided some great feedback. We just did kind of a poll and a survey to kind of, you know, because it's our first season, what are we doing good, what aren't we doing that we could do better? Because some really good feedback on that. But the thing that was great to hear is that they want it to continue through the summer, they want to continue it through the fall. So hopefully this will become a year-round program if we can find the field space, which we should be able to, and keep it rolling. So all good stuff when it comes to that. And then our big one, of course, is camp. This is quickly becoming priority number one in the office, as things are picking up, as we're literally about a month and a week away from starting, which is nuts. But the only, I think the one thing we're struggling with is staffing, just like everybody else. We're comfortable where we are, but we're not, you know, overly comfortable where we are. So we still have room for about 4 more staff from what we're looking at. We're running into a lot of issues with kids needing time off. I think with families not going on vacation in the last couple of years, that's kind of what we're seeing is, you know, I'd love to work, you know, you're a great candidate, but oh, by the way, I need 4 weeks off. Well, that's not gonna work. So we're just struggling with that a little bit, but you know, the thing that it is with ratios is we do not count our supervisors towards them, just because they're off doing other things. So we know if we do get into a crunch, we're going to be within ratio because of our supervisory staff and because of Joe and because of myself, if need be. So while we're okay where we're at, we definitely need a couple more to make us super confident and comfortable. So still ongoing. We had a couple come through this week. I think now the kids are coming back from college. I think that is starting to, those are the kids that we're seeing, which is great. Orientation has been planned, so that's all set for the staff. We're actually doing a 2-parter this year, which is great. We are partnering with Northborough, our neighbors across the line, to do a separate orientation with a consultant who's going to be coming in the week prior to our orientation. It's going to be a Saturday afternoon, evening orientation to focus on a 4-hour training to focus on inclusion strategies and techniques for summer camps with kids with learning differences or how to handle behavioral issues. And that was actually directly from the feedback that we got from staff last year of where they really wanted some more training and some more focus when it came to orientation. So we found this consultant through our state conference, and we brought her in for one of our regional meetings that we hosted in Worcester. We were really impressed. So Allie, the director in Northborough, and I kind of looked at each other during it and I just shook my head, and you know, a week later it was booked. So it'll be good that Northborough's there just because it'll be a good crowd. It's even better because we're splitting the cost. So, you know, we're getting at it at, you know, half price. So it's going to be good. But outside of that, we're ahead of schedule on a lot of stuff. You know, I think my brain is trained that I'm still by myself. So I'm like, I gotta do all this stuff. But, you know, now with Joe, I mean, we're way ahead. We went through all of our manuals and our handbooks and our parent handbooks and stuff like that today. Those should be finalized in the next probably 2 days. So that's a huge, you know, box checked. Joe's hauling on medical forms, bringing those in. Schedules are coming about. Supplies are already ordered. Special events are already handled and scheduled out. So we're way ahead of the game, which is really comforting right now. But we're just dealing with all the last minute people and last minute stuff that happens every single year. And then the big thing, 2 big things, we're bringing field trips back. We made that decision. So we will be doing field trips. We have three planned, not including our field day in Northborough. So we'll be going to Kimball's Farm. We got a great deal at the Worcester Bravehearts, the AA team out there for a camp day, and then Apex because it's right in our backyard, super simple. So we're excited to bring those back. And actually we're going to be going back to the pool at St. Mark's. So we're yet to announce that to families. We're just kind of buttoning up some details on that with them, lifeguards, things of that nature. But it's looking like we're going to be able to offer a water element to camp again. So that's going to be great to bring that back. So that's camp. That is programming. There is one issue that I'm going to fall on my sword on this one, unfortunately. So we got our tent. Our tent was delivered. Great. Very excited about it. We tried to put that puppy up, and holy smokes, it was not as easy as the company made it seem. So, you know, Joe and I, they said it would take 20 minutes, 4.5 hours later, Joe and I couldn't do it. So that was a fun day during school vacation out on Neary Field. So luckily we didn't do that where a game needed to be played or something like that. So we are kind of assessing, we can do it. I know we can get it up with the help of DPW. I don't know the comfort level of if something were to happen and we need to get it back up quickly or something like that. So we are toying with the idea of potentially getting a smaller version of the tent we had last year to be safe, which is, I know, disappointing because, you know, we spent a good amount of money on the tent. The tent that we have, you know, we can use. I know we can use the summer nights. I know we can use a Heritage Day. We're just because of what we went through, we're a little uneasy about using it as our sole tent for camp. So I don't know your guys' thoughts on that, but
I mean, I'd be fine if you feel like you want to go with the other tent as well. That's not an issue. But better safe than sorry. At least until maybe you get a few uses of, you know, if you get to use it a few times and you get more comfortable with how it's actually supposed to work. I don't have an issue with that.
yeah, I think and you know, we talked to facilities about it. I think again, summer nights would be awesome to have it. Heritage Day would be awesome to have it. Any other event we really do on big space, senior center can use it, things of that nature. So that, you know, the couple day uses of it, I'm just worried with, you know, in case something goes askew, you know, during the day, our ability to address it quickly. I did talk to the tent company just, you know, just because of this meeting and bringing this up, and they were able to get us lower than where we were last year, a little smaller again, but under that 10,000 range, so we don't have to worry about bidding and stuff like that. And we know the quality, so that's admittedly where we're leaning. Just, you know, just to be safe, we don't want to kind of roll those dice, just because we know how big of an impact that tent has for our program.
That makes sense.
Rachel, you're unmuted. Did you want to say something?
No.
Okay.
I fully believe you, and I'm confident that most people probably could not put up that tent at all. So yeah. Sure, it was harder than advertised.
And it was like the sunniest day, so I got home and I was just a tomato on top of it. So it's just insult to injury.
Did the company that we bought it from have any feedback?
No, it's funny, you know, we watched the videos and everything, and they got, you know, just two younger women doing it, and it's like done.
Made it look really
it's
easy.
super simple, but you know, I think if we had 4 or 5 people, we could get it done. The thing's huge, the thing's big. So, and you know, it was windy, and you know, I can make excuses, but I'm confident we can do it. I'm just not confident we could do it quickly in the event of an emergency or something like that. So, yeah, that's all I got for program updates, general updates, things like that.
So our projects in progress? Got any lighting updates for us?
Oh, I got lighting updates. The lights are done. Imagine that. So not done, but not done. So Mooney's done. We just need to commission Musco to come out and make sure all the lights are pointed correctly. So they're hitting where we told planning, we told the town they were going to hit, and not that we turn them on and they're shining into the neighbors, neighbors' houses. So they're being commissioned with our contractor to come out and get that taken care of. I don't have a timeline on that now, but I did put Musco on notice that it was coming their way. So Mike over there is ready for that call to get that rolling. National Grid was on site today over at tennis courts, handling their side of the road to pull the power. Island Lighting did their work up their pole. So it's just a matter of them now just pulling it across. So that should be done this week, and then we're going to be in business. So I like to think, in a week or two, those things are going to be on, those things are going to be used, and we can all have a group hug and maybe a cry for a little bit, just that those are done. So super, super excited on that to get those through.
Yeah, and I feel like when you're ready to like flip it on, like we all need an invite to show up to see these lights turn on and celebrate, right?
Stand there on the field with my phone.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
I know. I mean, like, I feel like, and we should make some like informal invites, be like, we're turning them on tonight. You want to
Yeah.
come see?
Yeah. Who's going to be the lucky team who gets to play on room first?
Exactly.
So that's great. So, hopefully one more meeting, these will be on the agenda. The other piece of it too, obviously Art needs to come out, do a final inspection, hold up his end of the bargain. Outside of the lights, the one thing that's left is there's some plantings, some arborvitaes that we put in good faith for the neighbors. So, while that's not priority number one, we still got to check that box off, and then we'll submit everything to planning, and we'll get that all done, and we'll be good to go. But next is Calander. We spoke to Alan last week. As expected, it's just a supply chain thing. He's just struggling to get what he needs, and that comes to the PVC piping. He's still confident he'll get seed in the ground and will be done by the end of June. He seems very confident of that. So we're still riding that train with him. He's been pretty good with communication, keeping us updated at all times. But he says as soon as he has it, he's going to be on site. So we haven't heard from him this week. It's been weekly, kind of getting updates, but hopefully soon. It shouldn't be a long construction process. It's pretty cookie cutter for them, as we've been saying all along. So it's just a matter of them getting what they need, getting out here, and doing what needs to be done. Now I added the next one on after Calander, which is Choate softball field. So I've known background, I've known Alan for quite some time. I've worked with him in other towns and he started strictly as a baseball field guy, fixing fields. So as we all know, the softball field at Choate has some pretty bad issues when it comes to holding water, especially in after a good dumping. We've been very fortunate, knock on wood, hopefully I didn't just jinx it this season, where the rain hasn't been as heavy and the weather has been warm. And as when there has been puddles, they've actually dried up pretty quickly. But I brought him down just out of curiosity to see if he could do anything. And I think we may have talked about this, but before I even got into it, he saw exactly what was wrong with it. And he was willing to come out and fix it for us. Not an in-depth, full scrape, full deal, just because we know, there's a future to that, hopefully a future use to that property. But what he would do, he would fix the grade. He would make sure that if it rains, the water is draining out properly. Because as he put it, the field right now is a bowl, and it just needs to be built up. It needs to be carved out on the outfield. Because if you're walking out at a softball field, once you hit second base, there's a drop into the outfield. So taking that all out, fine grading it down, making sure that water goes where it needs to be, and getting it back into shape. DPW is going to help us out when it comes to disposal of a lot of the material, and because of that help and us buying material and stuff like that for him to get this done, it's way under that 10,000. So we can take care of it in-house properly, just because we program out that field, and we'll be good to go. So when he is in town to do Calander, he is going to hit that as well. So those can be expected to be checked off at the same time. With the softball field, he said he's looking at a day and a half. So there'll be little to no disruption over there, which will be good. And then, any questions on Calander or Joe?
No.
All right, and then the tennis courts got approved at town meeting. So that's great. So, no, well, I think, Rachel, did you go to town meeting? Why not?
Well, it was a little rough getting out, but I read the updates about it.
But no questions, so that was good. So I'm 2 for 2. I'll take that.
I'll take it, absolutely. Usually it was unanimous too.
Yeah, exactly.
That was,
Yeah.
and I believe with CPC meets Thursday night, so I'm hoping like the MOUs and everything are on the agenda, because then in theory, well, I guess you've already got we know who's gonna do it, but
Right.
we'll get that paperwork done with them, so then you can just hit the ground running.
Mhm.
What, July 1, when we have funding unleashed?
Yep. So I wanted to, of course, I wanted to throw a screwball on this because I want to get you guys' feedback on this. So the plan on what it is, and this is something we just kind of been tossing around lately in the office. You know, it's the 2 tennis courts with the pickleball lines gone into it. I think we all know that pickleball is exploding and it's starting to creep into our town. And there is an option to make court 2, which was the skate park, strictly pickleball. So the way we were doing it now was temporary lines like Neary. So somebody would have to bring out a temporary net, set it up, play and whatnot. But we would have the option to make actual permanent pickleball fields and make that a pickleball facility. Instead, permanent nets, posts, permanent lines, all that good stuff. I didn't know if you guys had any interest in going down that road. I don't know. And I also admittedly don't know the process to that. I mean, it's within the scope of what we said we were going to do, of adding pickleball. But I didn't know if, 4 pickleball courts instead of 1 tennis court, if there was any interest here to explore that.
I mean, I think that would be worthy of exploring. It's hard to tell right now because you don't have a sense of, if you had a court, how much demand there would be. So that makes it a bit tricky. But I would expect that, given what I understand to be the demand out there, that it would get utilized.
Mm-hmm. And the reason I'm doing it is because we have so many people reaching out right now about it. So, there's a much higher interest of a lot of new faces with our group that uses Neary on the 3 days a week, asking if there's any specifics. We have the little court upstairs in the building. There's a lot of new faces up there. So I think
It would be a good test, Tim, too. Like if you did it over there and you were able to gauge the demand, then that might indicate that we need to think about the balance over at Neary as well, as far as whatnot. But that's a good, I mean, given it's been out of circulation for so long, it's probably a good venue to consider this as an option.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, agreed.
Jen, do you think that would cause issue with CPA? I mean, again, I think it's within the scope of what was funded.
Yeah, it's within their scope. I mean, we did not specify in the warrant if they would be permanent or temporary netting, right? So like that's also why these warrant articles are written very particularly to make sure because whatever you write, you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we're running into problems with that with some other ones on CPC. Like where the town voted to do something and they want to do something different and you can't allow it without going back to town meeting. But ours was written to fund the rehab of that court, right? Yep. So I think if we're staying within budget there, it shouldn't, we're making it even better than we originally planned, right? So I think that's fine.
And then, but if we went over budget, we've already talked about that, right? That we would be willing to pick it up.
I think so. I don't think we've explicitly talked about if we go over budget. I think so. What I would almost rather say is we go through and figure out what this would cost, because I guess I'm sensitive to the fact of I don't want to go over budget on anything, right? Because it kind of reflects poorly on us. Yep. It's more of this is our budget to do it. There is an option to upgrade this And like, because it's a property we do programming on, the revolving could be used for it. So we'd like to upgrade this piece of it, and revolving is going to kick in and cover that cost, right?
Mhm.
Just like, and it's just maybe semantics, but I just don't want there to be a perception that it was just funded and we went over,
I get that,
right? So-
100%.
Yeah.
I get that.
but I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, I've reached out and I've inquired, and it seems it's gonna, I'm asking for an official quote, so we have it on paper.
Yep.
The increases cost us because instead of putting 2 posts, we're doing 2, 4, 6, 8 posts,
Yep.
and all that. So it would probably, using the contingency, it would probably go 5 to 10 over the contingency amount. Just because of, again, you're painting specific for, and then you're adding posts, and I'm sure I could probably talk to them and get kind of, we'll pick up the nets, separately and stuff like that and see where it
Yep.
hits, but it's
Yep.
probably gonna go over a little more. But I'm just thinking, kind of what you just said, Don, like if we're gonna do it, this is the court to do it. I know Northborough is building theirs, and the hype around that is extreme. So I'm kind of leaning towards this way, but again, I'm confident it's gonna go over. I just want to make sure we would be willing to put our necks out there to say, and I think framing it perfectly, and it's not even like we're framing it, I think it's the truth, is upgrading based on what we, on trend and providing it. So.
Yep.
All right. So I will, I'm trying to think how to do this. Because I want to get those quotes signed and sent off so we can get in queue. So I guess as soon as I get it finalized, I don't know if we want to call it quick just to say let's do it, or send it around, and if anybody has objection, I don't know how we want to do that, because I'm sure I'm going to get it before our next meeting.
I would be, whatever you need, Tim, we can make it, I can make it work. If it's just
Yeah.
hop on for 5 minutes or whatever,
Okay.
that's no big deal.
My guess is if it means we're gonna use revolving funds to add to it, we probably should get on, even if it's for like a quick call, right? And then I'll double check the CPC agenda, but like hopefully we're discussing MOUs so we can get that to you this week so that you can get that signed, because in theory, before you're committing to anything, we should have that MOU in place with CPC.
Which I'm assuming is pretty cut and paste.
It should be exactly what you signed for Calander.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Okay. Great.
So I had on here so Board of Selectmen had requested that we put the coordinator role into our revolving fund and pull the part-time role out and put it in our budget. So I can't remember, I don't think we haven't actually met on this since that happened. So
Right.
this, I feel like they tried to sneak this in and like catch us off guard and do this last second, the night they were closing the warrant, and they did not formally invite us or ask for an opinion before they kind of ambushed Tim on this. But I was there and I spoke out against this because I feel like this is a conversation that keeps coming up, but every time this commission tries to engage in conversation with advisory or anyone else about this, and what does this actually mean for us? Every time I've been told like, oh, we'll do that later, we'll do it later. And I know last year, like it came up again last June, and we tried to get on their agenda and we got deferred from advisory. And we tried a couple times last fall to get on their agenda and kept being deferred. So if this popped up literally like the night that they were closing the warrant article on us. So successfully got advisory and Board of Selectmen, who were there in joint meeting, to basically agree to leave it alone for this year. And the intent is after town meeting that we will work with Brian Ballantyne and the town accountants to like do a closer look at our revolving fund and understand like what do we actually have in there that is like, I don't know, they call it like cushion. I don't know if I'd really call it cushion or not, but like understand our actual cash flows and then what's in there and model out and forecast, what does it mean to absorb another person into that revolving fund? Is it possible? Is it not? Or what would our scenario, or what would our like revenues have to be in order to drive that, or even our, you know, our profits have to be to drive that? So I haven't heard boo since that night at all from anyone. But I would like us to proactively go have this conversation, because if we go through the financial modeling exercise and we could actually do this and it makes sense and doesn't put the programming at risk, then like, yes, of course we should. But I think I think people look at the revolving balances periodically and misunderstand what that actually means. And the fact that, like, so for example, when they pulled the numbers and we're looking at it like a month ago, we had taken in all the payments for summer camp and paid out no expenses for summer camp.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Revolving fund
So we should do, I'm 100%, we did it, I did this exercise like 4 years ago.
Yeah, I
just
knew
as
we did.
Doreen. So
Yeah.
we can do it again. I'm happy to help go through it.
Yep.
First and foremost, we have to make sure that this shouldn't be an exercise about what could we possibly fit in and jam in there, right? Like, this should absolutely be first and foremost, what qualifies for treatment under the revolving fund. That has to be the first thing. If we get any sort of an exercise where it's like, well, it looks like you could jam 3 people in there, let's jam 3 people in there. That doesn't, I'm certainly not gonna sign up for anything that doesn't meet the requirements of the, you know, the Commonwealth's guidelines on the revolver. So first, number one. Number two, let's do the math, right? But I still strongly feel like would be far more comfortable with an allocation methodology based on utilization than I would a lifting and shifting of you know, a position, like, because then you've taken that position out of the budget, and now that headcount's not there anymore. Trust me, all games that as a chief financial officer I know how to play, and I, you know, so we have to be on guard for that, you know, just to make sure again that we get everything right. I definitely think, and I remember one of the conversations, I think it was a year or two ago, actually probably pre-COVID, because I think we were actually at the fire station. The concept of reviewing it and understanding, are we allocating enough cost to the revolver? 100%. We should be looking into that, figuring that out, making sure that we're properly matching the level of effort and the cost to support that level of effort to the benefit to the program, or to the program that benefits from it. So I'm not necessarily there on the lift and shift, but I certainly think we should be looking at, you know, I don't want to go so far as to say a time study, but if you were to say that person X is spending 47% of their time on revolving fund related activities, then I don't think it's unreasonable to take 47% of person X's salary and associated burden, benefits and whatnot, and move it on over. So
I think but I would just tag on to that. I agree, if there are profits to cover it. So,
well, so then that, and again, I'll put the CFO back hat on. Are we charging enough? Like, if those services are absolutely required to fundamentally provide the programs that we're talking about, then like, you want to make sure that you have all your costs in the right bucket so that you know what the price should be to generate the right revenue. But absolutely, we should.
And I think, like, so, no, it's fair. I think the other part to add to that is, like, how much of it do we want to put that cost burden on those signing up for a program versus like the tax base to offer, because we offer a lot of free programming and scholar. So like, we also want to just,
we're on the same page. This is not a lift and shift. This position does not move. It's a matter of what is the tolerable amount, the appropriate amount that should be moved over. So we're there.
Okay.
So Tim, I think we're all there.
Clarifying for anyone watching back that, like, because it's too easy to say, oh, the program coordinator is all programs, shove it in there, when a lot of work he's doing is for programs that are free, or like, you know, we have scholarships for, so like the funds aren't there. But yeah, so I think, like, Don, like, definitely need to partner and have you help drive.
Oh yeah, no, we'll go off and do it again. Yeah, no, this is, we can
awesome.
Dust off everything from the last time around, but yeah, let them come. We're ready.
I mean, two things. I think one thing kind of when Jen and I were on the meeting and this was brought up, and I was given the tip that this was going to come up like hours before it did. And I pulled quick numbers, and we were at this past year, if we were to pull Joe, if we had nothing in our account and we were starting at zero come, July 1 last year, and we had to pull him out of what we made, we'd be in the red. So there would be, I mean, I know there's things that have happened in the last 2 years that have caused, ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
But that's always been my biggest concern. It was like my first select board meeting when I got hired. They kind of brought this up.
Look, Joe participates in, doesn't Joe help you with the field permits?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's not
Fields of
revolving
calls
fund.
with pavilion
Yeah.
rentals, all that
He was
stuff.
just, he said he was helping summer nights. I don't think we consider that revolving.
Nope.
Nope.
So there's two, I mean, I just got started. So the lift and shift does not qualify, like it doesn't work. So, but again, I'm open to and was open to and have always been open to the appropriate matching of expenses to the revenues. And so let's go through the exercise and figure out, is that 10, 15, 20, 30, whatever the right number is, like we should definitely investigate that.
I mean, but also there's that argument that was actually brought up this past town meeting with certain departments of, is it appropriate to have an unreliable, a full-time salary, a full-time employee being paid out of an unreliable account? God forbid we hit another pandemic and we're out flat, and we spent down this account with everything that we're doing, now do we lose Joe?
Yep.
Because of that. So, but the other piece of it too is they said they would potentially want to put this on fall town meeting as a mid-year shift. So I need to get clarification on that, but Kathy Cook, I remember, mentioned that they want to tackle this at fall town meeting. And so I don't know if that's actually gonna happen, but it gives us time. I also don't want to wait.
It's a mathematical exercise as far as the revenues and the expenses and the cash flows, right? That's just and I think you saw some of the work that we did a few years ago with sort of just to Jen's point, this cannot be, and Kathy knows this, it's not you just can't snap a line and go, what's the balance today, right? You actually do have to look at, because of the timing of receipts versus expenditures and the whole thing, right? So you look at it in that context, 100%. And then you can say, almost in parallel, we should be thinking about how much time is spent by, full-time personnel for these projects, for that effort, and how much of it really is like, I agree, Jen, some of it you need to have, like, you can't have it all be outsourced, like, you know what I mean? Like there needs to be some amount of town ownership of it. So it's not 100%, and maybe it's not zero, but and maybe when they find out it's not 100%, then they start to lose interest. But I don't even think it's necessarily 50%. Like it's something, and that's where we'll have to go in and say, here's and then Jen, we bring up the comment about, like, well, again, like what happens if we have a downturn, and we don't have sufficient funds to pay, what are we supposed to be doing there, right? So, which is a completely valid point, especially maybe not something that ever would have been thought of 2 or 3 years ago, but post-pandemic needs to be on top, needs to be a consideration.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then we just need to also double check like all the rules and regulations around revolving fund too, because even when we talk about like partial funding, because I know like in recently there's been like, we can't lump sum, like we were moving money out of revolving into the general fund, right? Like annually this is 9/11, but like things like that, like we actually can't do it that way. So I think it's probably also a good way to just double down and like reconfirm everything we think we know about the revolving fund is still actually true, and like we're interpreting it the correct way as well. So I like, yeah, do we start by Tim, like you reaching out to Brian to see like, is there a good time for us to
can we do the math on and maybe you've already done it, Tim, but can we do the math over the last couple of years of receipts and expenditures just to see just to chart can we chart it as opposed to a point in time? Like, I can picture these things in my eye from years ago when we did it back in the day.
Presentation. Yep.
Yeah. And that was kind of, I was working off of whatever Doreen could uncover in her piles of paper, but yeah, like even if we were just, it'd be good to show, even to show what happened in the pandemic, like this is what happens and this is the thing that we have to be mindful of. And therefore, even if we did figure out that there was an amount that we think is allocable, we would want to make sure that we don't exceed a certain threshold so that we don't trip the issue that you were describing, Jen, right? So maybe maybe 40% is the right number, but we only think 20% is doable because we need to maintain a minimum funding threshold to account for disaster.
Yep. No, that makes sense. So, I mean, like, is that something assuming like, so Tim and Dawn, you guys can start pulling together that view. So maybe we pull together what we have of the view first.
Yeah, no, we should pull because I would expect what we have of the view is the view. Like that's the accounting view. Like here are the receipts, here are the expenditures, here's the timing.
So, and I guess my opinion, so what finances view and the town finance is going to be a lot higher level than probably what, or at least for the last 2 years that you have, right, Tim? Because I guess part of it's going to be like maybe we bucket wrap, like winter wrap brought in this, but spent this, and because it matter.
Yeah, I mean, I can go.
It matters like what programs
you can do bird's eye view. You can break it out, and I have a lot of, at least since we've had the access to our system, like our actual software now. Like I have those years already done. It's just a practice I do. So that stuff's easy. It's just working with Carla to get pre me.
If you want Tim, if you want to send some of that stuff over, I can do it once over, see what it looks like, and that might generate some additional questions and ideas. I don't know, Jen, that we need to go program by program, like in that sort of, because that's maybe we need to internally.
Or I guess I was thinking more like almost like category, right?
Well, I think what's interesting is if I recall what we did the last time, and we actually did it, we did the revolving fund, and then we did. I think we did call out camp because camp was it can be such a driver, or had been such a driver, and it was not nearly to the level of quality that we have now. And I believe as side work, I also had done the fields just to show what goes into the fields that does not come into the department. Just as because every time anytime you have a conversation, people are still amazed that money goes in the general fund, and they have no idea how much actually goes in the general fund.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, if you send along what you have, like without having to do extra work, Tim, I'm happy to take a look at it, and it might come up with some ideas.
Yeah. And the number they're looking at, just so you know, is 70,000. That's what we would have to absorb. So
it's one FTE.
That's before all the benefits though, right?
That's with benefits.
Yeah,
that's like 69 something. So
okay. All right. Cool. All right. So we can
one more year done before you're free. So
well, they might have to wait one more year to get this.
Nice. Oh, cool. Yeah. So let's start there, and then like when we're ready, we can find time with Brian, because like we can walk Brian through what we've done, get their buy-in, their sign off, so we have his support, and then
theoretically now we've got, I think, a little bit more accessibility to general counsel too. So if we do have questions on Revolver, that probably is a lot better position than we were in the past.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense.
I'll make sense. I don't have the historical knowledge of all this, but I'll make sense.
This will be a good exercise. I think you'll get a crash course.
Yes.
And the other piece of that too is their justification is then taking taking Denise's role and putting it into the budget, which I think it's apples and oranges. It's not pennies, but it's pennies compared to, given the flux of that position.
Yep.
Of what a full-time employee would be. So I don't really think that's a fair trade. I don't really think that's something we would go down. But, and if they're willing to cover, 20 grand of that, then why not the extra 30 or something for Joe?
Well, let's do our homework, and then we can figure out what their driver is.
Yep.
That works. I had on here any update on like Denise's backfill?
Oh, yeah, speaking of, so Denise is going to be leaving us at the end of the month officially. We kind of talked it out over the last couple of weeks. She was kind of back and forth. So really bummed, if I'm being honest, to see her go. But I get it. And, you know, the way she put it, which I appreciate it, is more of a compliment to, I think, where we're at now. Everything's very automated. Everything is running smoothly. We got Joe in there now. He's established. We have software, we have registration processes that are functioning. You know, we're at, you know, I would say comfortably 98% all registration is done online now. So her responsibilities that she's had in the past have kind of gone away, and she is, you know, looking to step away from her roles in Summer Nights and Heritage Day just because of the scope. And you know, she's got new grandkids and she wants to travel, or her husband's retiring, all that stuff. So we'll be wishing her well at the end of this month. And then we are going to try to backfill it. Where I'm already talking to Vanessa to get that posted in hopes that we can get a part-timer in. Our biggest concern is summer, just having someone in that office. I do think we'll have more of a presence there now that Joe is in the office, but we all know how that goes, especially on the first days of sessions and our busy days. So we'll be working to get somebody in there, hopefully as soon as possible. Again, it's just a part-time gig, non-benefited. So it could be, you know, someone looking for a gig like that, or it could just be a college kid who's good at answering phones and stuff like that. So we'll see what we get, but we're moving on that hopefully as quick as possible to fill that up.
How many hours per week? Is it varied or?
It does vary, but it is 16 or 18, whatever, right below that threshold where we don't have to pay benefits. So you looking for a career shift, Rachel? You wanna come hang?
It sounds better than what I'm doing, but
Yeah. I feel like that would be a great gig for a college kid this summer, right?
Yeah, we went down the internship route. We tried to see, we called the schools that we know of, but rec specific schools, their programs are not too robust right now. So we couldn't really get any bites like that. So that was kind of disappointing. We were looking forward to that opportunity with someone in the field. But we'll go this route and we'll see what happens. So.
Okay, so, oh yeah, so we still have a vacancy on our commission. So if you know anyone or can convince anyone to join us, would be awesome. I know, like, we've had it for a long time now, actually, like 8 months. So
I put that on there on the agenda. I'm just thinking with potential projects coming down our pipeline now of what we're looking into. It could be good to get another body on here. So. And Kristen's up next month. I don't know if she's gonna re-up or not, but I don't even know if she knows.
I didn't know we were giving her an option, but okay.
Yeah, she's her term is up next month.
Okay. I know this was never advertised through the town, right?
Not explicitly. It was mentioned, but not.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I know periodically, like, the Board of Selectmen advertise open ones. And I think I distinctly recalled last time they advertised, we were not on the list. So I don't know if they have any plans to do that again. But, yeah, I feel like I thought Kristen had some leads, but I can bug her and ask her. Okay.
yeah.
I mean, like, I don't know. Would it be something where, like, would we go to the senior center and advertise, right? See if there's anyone who wants to join, right?
Well, I guess we've had that conversation, right? Like, what aspect of the town are we looking to?
Because I feel like, I mean, like, Dave brought an older population than all of us, right, with younger kids. So, and especially maybe with like the dog park and the walkability and like the ADA, maybe there's someone there with an interest that wants to join. But I don't know. Okay. And then, so spring season field permits.
I'll make this quick because I know we're approaching 2 hours.
Yeah, I know.
I just want to give you guys an overview of how we did just this fiscal year, now that we've had full season. To give you, where are my fields? Give you an idea of kind of where we're at with both grass and 9/11. So starting with this kind of just goes to Don, what you just mentioned a few minutes ago. What we're looking at is roughly 35 and a half what we took in with totals when it came to grass fields, which is pretty good. I think it's pretty good. It's kind of average of what we've done in the past. With the addition of Mizuno now using Mooney, that's kind of bumped up the numbers from years past. So that, again, this is just an overview. So pretty standard players of what we usually look at. This will probably vary, 1,000 or so. Once I kind of come through the little stuff like the pavilion rental of non-residents and kind of one-off rentals per se. But grass fields seem to be, they came back strong after, again, having a year off because of everything that was going on. Bigger one is 9/11 here, broken down. I do think, this is going to be on a future thing for us too, is looking at these fees, especially now that we're trying to make up some monies for the updated schedule for that bond. But we're looking at just shy of 60 grand taken in from this fiscal year. Obviously, summer's always a quiet season for us down there, surprisingly. So I think if anything, that is where the room is to improve, to maybe get some new people out there, some vendors kind of putting it out there to people we've worked with, seeing if they want to maybe use the space a little more. But the fall was the usual with soccer being our biggest. Soccer's always the biggest out there. This spring was enormous. Like Don just mentioned, it was packed. It's been packed every single day of available hours. Outside of school time, weekends are jammed and evenings are jammed till the sun goes down. So a pretty good take. I think I was just playing around with different numbers. What I can say is where we're at with that 85 an hour, we are so far below the market value right now of other fields in our area and in the state, if not one of the cheaper ones. So I do think there is room for potentially going up. I know it won't be met with happiness with a lot of these groups, but if we do have this responsibility of offsetting a cost in town, I think we do need to look at it. So
there's inflation out there.
Yeah. And we've held strong at this ever since I've been here. It hasn't changed. So that is what it is.
So is that something we probably would want to get on the agenda to vote on new rates next meeting so they can go into effect for fall?
Maybe not a vote next meeting, but I think we should do something for the fall. Let us work on this in the summer, but also I really want to give the groups a heads up so that they can program it out on their end on what they can expect. So
you're saying like don't raise rates for fall, but maybe when
I would say raise rates for fall.
Okay.
I'm saying I wouldn't be ready. I don't think we should be ready to vote maybe next meeting.
Okay.
We may be, but I have some pretty significant data from the state that I was able to get my hands on when it comes to costs, rental costs.
I was just wondering about when do you take requests for fall rentals?
Mm-hmm.
Thinking we want to make sure the rates are updated before you start receiving. Right. So we don't want to bait and switch on them.
Yeah. So that would be August.
Okay. All right.
I want it done by August.
Okay.
And will you be able to put this up against the amortization table that we got from the accounting folks? Okay. Yeah.
I just actually got an updated one from Brian today. So we got.
Look, between your fair market value surveys and the amortization schedule from the town, you're going to have plenty of ammunition.
Yeah. Yep. So.
And the fact that the thing is sold out. Supply and demand. Unfortunately.
Yep. Makes sense.
But I'll send this around, just a quick visual. Again, just kind of end of year stuff. I figure get a jump on it before summer kicks in. but pretty good. I mean, spring was awesome. Spring was great. All the groups have been great. Really no issues, no overlaps at all, especially at 9/11, which has been great. Yeah, that's pretty much it. But I would like to, I guess, plant that seed then, if within the next probably 2 meetings, we come to a conclusion and get something voted on, so I can get it out.
Cool, we can do that. Tennis court policies.
That was left over from not
Okay.
allowing private rental.
Okay,
That's-
then we already voted on that, so
Yeah,
maybe.
so really what came out for that is I X'd it out off it's on the permit application, but X'd out with a commission vote date, so.
Gotcha.
Pretty
Okay.
much, it was an issue at the start, but it's evened itself out, so we're good. No real concern there.
And then we don't have any ARPA application updates, right? Because it's all kind of
Yeah, I
pending.
mean, they were, I saw tonight, actually, they were making recommendations. I don't know what they're making recommendations on.
I saw that too, to Board of Selectmen, and I tried to look in the packet and I didn't see the recommendation there, so I didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, our application is with Lundblad, and obviously we don't have a number yet. Hopefully we'll in a couple weeks. It sounds like we will, definitely. But I guess we'll see what happens tonight and the direction where it goes from there.
And then ADA's application to ARPA, would that cover what we needed? That wasn't to cover what we need. It was something else they were putting it in for, right? Or just like a bucket, like they're like, oh,
Yeah.
extra grand towards
I think they
ADA.
were going for like a 50K, a bucket for 50,000. I don't know if it was explicit use for projects though. The sense I got was they were for more further studies. So like if we were to do the engineering for all these walkarounds and stuff, it would come out of that bucket.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes more sense because I was like 50 grand's not to go very far for ADA work. Okay. All right, then all we need to do is approve meeting minutes from, was it April 19th? So these are the meeting minutes where we just approved the to support the trail committee. We had our 1 minute long meeting.
Record.
Yeah, so I believe you guys I sent that to you guys, right? I think I sent it to you that night, like April 20th. If not, I can, well, you want to let me share?
Am I allowed to vote on it, Jen, if I wasn't there?
You are, yes.
Oh, that was an awesome meeting. Can I just say?
It was the best. Cool. All right, so then, yeah, I'll make a motion to approve meeting minutes from April 20th.
I can second that for you.
All right, and then a roll call vote. Hanson, yes.
Dumont,
Okay,
yes.
All right, we're good. So next meeting for June. What do we got for dates, or what can we
Is it
do?
the 7th or the 14th?
Yes, yeah. If those Tuesdays still work.
I could do either one.
Yep.
All right. I know I prefer the 7th, but do we want to see, maybe either one of those will actually work? Do we want to see what Activitas can do?
Yeah, sure.
Book it around them? Okay.
I'll start with the 7th. I'll do 14th as option 2.
Okay.
Very good.
And then, so just because for summer planning, what do people's like second Tuesdays look like? So July 12th and August 9th?
So I'm gonna throw a wrench in that. Come July, the ability with Zoom ends as of
No,
right now.
no.
So I just lost all of you off the commission. So we're yet to get direction, but from what we're hearing from the state, it's gonna end. So I guess that's TBD on what we're gonna be doing.
Okay. Okay, then maybe next meeting we need to schedule what we like when we're all in town versus somewhere else.
We have a department meeting next week, so that's one of the questions I was gonna ask.
Okay.
It's gonna come up, but I can get some
So
clarity.
I do also believe like, so pre-COVID, as long as we had quorum physically present, you could have someone on the phone dial it, like call in. So
Mhm.
like we still have that option if like one person's traveling or whatever needs to call in, they are allowed to. We just have to document it differently. And then we still have to call roll call votes because they're not physically there. But as long as we have quorum physically in the meeting, there can still be a dial-in.
And the town invested in those owl things to try to go hybrid.
Oh, nice.
I don't know. I mean, they won't be at our building. I think it's McAuliffe and maybe the senior center, I think. So I'm sure we'll get guidance on that, how that's going to work. So.
That works. All right, so then we're all set.
We're all set.
I think this is our longest meeting in a very long time. but-
Sorry.
Make a motion to adjourn at 9:03.
Second,
Second.
All right, all in favor?
I do my
All right.
yes.
Linda, yes.
Anthony, yes. All right, I'll see you guys later.
All right, thanks,
Good
everyone.
Yep, good night.